Welcome to Tech Marketer Live, helping you create and capture demand in the enterprise technology market. Now here's your host, Jordy Carswell.
All right, welcome everybody. We're excited to talk today about cold email outreach. We know how important sales outreach is to powering the business in the enterprise B2B world. And we have the man with us today when it comes to email outreach and what's working, what's not. And we're excited to have him here. So welcome Eric Boggs from RevBoss.com. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Love being introduced as the man. That can have multiple connotations, but I'm going to take the good one. Thank you.
You got it. You got it. So Eric, you eat, sleep, breathe email outreach and sales outreach. And a big part of what marketers are doing right now is having to, in some cases, follow up on their own leads. In some cases, use email outreach to drive event attendance, to build initiative or to forward initiatives that are happening inside their organization. So we're excited to talk to you today. So let's jump right into it and get your thoughts on things. First off, what are some of the best practices when it comes to sales outreach? What's working, what's not out there in the market right now in 2023?
Yeah. Well, I think you said it well that I eat, sleep, and breathe and dream this stuff. I've been running RevBoss for a long time. Have a team of people that are just as, I would say, more knowledgeable at this point than me about certainly the blocking and tackling when it comes to this stuff. And one of the things that's so fun about the work that I do and the work that we do is that it just works. And it just works in weird and unexpected ways at times. And so, our clients are ranging from, 5 or 6 person tech startups to very large publicly traded enterprises. And the strategy varies, the story varies, but really at the most basic, atomic level, it is send a good story to the right person and land in their inbox. That's it. That's literally it. And if you do those three things, it'll work. And send a good story, a lot harder than it sounds like, to the right person, also a lot harder than it sounds. And landing in the inbox is, that's like the dark arts, right? It's like I can't always tell you why your open rate is what it is, but I know the weird invisible forces that move it up and down. And yeah, that's it. And so the best practices all kind of fall in those categories one way or the other. And it varies just depending on your category, your industry, the size of your business, your goals. Are you whale hunting? Are you rabbit hunting? Are you, brand building? Are you desperate to hit your number in the next 60 days? It's all, it can be all over the place.
That's great. Actually, that's a great framework for thinking about, the strategies that you use. So that first one that you mentioned, telling a good story, what do you mean by telling a story? Aren't we just asking for meetings?
Yeah. Oh, you set that up really nicely. Of course, yes. We have a team of 4 full-time copywriters, and their backgrounds range from kind of straight up corporate, Oxford University Press corporate sort of copy to the woman that ran the Twitter and Instagram handles for Rick and Morty. And
cool.
When you think about storytelling, that's the breadth of it. And there's the sales adage that people buy from people. And so, we advocate to our clients, and I would advocate to anyone, that if you're talking about your product, you're losing. If you're talking about, the problem that you solve, that's a lot better. If you are weaving that problem in a personal narrative that can be your personal narrative or that can relate to the other person's personal narrative, then yeah, that's how you win. And so story can range from, I started this business because, or in my old role as a blank, I learned that you probably have this problem. Or when I was in a job just like yours, the thing I struggled with the most was this. And that's what people want to hear. Stories.
Interesting. So it's a little different than, here's what we do. Do you want it? You're starting from a different perspective.
And I'm sure if you were to survey all of the thousands upon thousands of emails that we have sending from our platform today, I'm sure there are some very short, very terse, not terse is not the right word, very direct, like, hey, Jordy, have you ever thought about this problem in this way? We do this. Let's talk. Like, sure, there is a lot of that. But one of the things that's kind of surprised me is that sometimes like the longer narrative can win. And that's when you get the replies that are like, I get so many emails like this, but this was the best one. Or I never reply to emails like this one, but yours stood out because. And, you know, that investment is worth it for a couple reasons. One, you get leads and you get good leads. You get people that buy the story. Two, you get replies. You don't get spam button clicks. Replies, inbox engagement is what keeps your open rate healthy. And so, you know, you want to optimize for replies with your copy. Yeah, I think I said there are several reasons, but really those are just the two.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So I mean, that's a huge piece of it, right? Telling a story, weaving a narrative, right? But doing that from a personal perspective on the behalf of the person that's, you know, reaching out, and then doing it at scale is, you know, another thing, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean that's the hard part, right? Is doing it at you know, for us, doing it for, you know, a couple hundred clients, for your BDR team, doing it across a team of 10 or 20 or 100, or even just 2. And so like having a framework is really helpful. Having like a core strategy / set of beliefs in terms of like how you want to do it is helpful. But then you've just got to have like technology, and that technology can be Google Sheets, it can be Chat GPT, it can be, I'm sure there's like some LinkedIn hackery out there to help you like pull out personal information that you can use to generate messaging. We've built a whole personalization engine into our application that does a lot of that. But finding a way to make you feel like the only recipient of this email, and also, you know, 500 other people to feel like the only recipient of this email. It's hard, but it's also like the noble pursuit of, you know, the outbound marketer.
Yeah, for sure. Because we've all seen examples of where it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Backfires and doesn't work. But a big part of that is the quality of the data that you're, you know, pulling from the Google Sheet that it's pulling company names from, or job titles from, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And it can be like tiny little subtle things too. Like, I mean, we all know what bad looks like, and bad can take many forms. And, you know, the obvious bad is like broken personalization, but not just broken personalization, but like, you know, if I were going to contact Jordy at Actual Tech Media, I might shorten that to Actual Tech. Or, you know, I certainly want it to be, you know, Actual Tech Media, a Globocom brand Inc., right? And like even something as subtle as that, you know, it kind of throws off the recipient as like, oh yeah, this is not for me. Eric did not send this to me. Like, software generated this.
Yeah, no, you can definitely see those examples. High first name, which is the marketer's worst nightmare.
We've all done it too, by the way.
Somebody gets back to you and says, just so you know, and then you die inside a little bit. That's okay.
I remember the first time I misspelled a word in a subject line. I was probably like 24, 25. And, you know, the CEO of the company pointed out to me. And I mean, he had to point it out. And I was just like, you know, just like died 1,000 deaths. Like wanted to crawl inside of myself and vanish. It was just an awful feeling.
But then you'd be like, well, but you noticed it, didn't you? You opened it, right?
Yeah. It's like, you say you make that mistake once, and then you like, you know, check your emails a million times going forward. But in reality, it's like, you still make that stupid mistake. It's fine.
Yeah, for sure. No, it happens. So that's the first thing. So weaving a good story, you know, tell them a little bit about yourself. How about the people part? So getting to the right people, like what are some of the nuances of that?
Yeah. I mean, this is like that and the story have to go together, right? And let's say we're selling, you know, to e-commerce brands. hey, we're XYZ Co. We sell to e-commerce brands. Here's the history behind our business. Here's a really cool client story. Fine, you can do that. You'll get leads out of it. When it comes down to finding the right people, I think it's one, being thoughtful about job title segmentation and not just like, oh, I'm looking for directors of marketing. Yep. Okay, fine. Well, do you want growth? Do you want vice presidents? Do you want, there's like director of marketing, but then there's like these little like smaller planets in that constellation and smaller stars in that constellation, I guess, where those actually might be the juicier targets because it's like a more specialized title with a more specialized set of problems that you might resonate with. So that's one piece of it. The other, and this is something that we try to do a lot of with our clients, is think about the person that you're targeting, but also think about the absence of titles. So an e-commerce brand that has a director of marketing but doesn't have a director of e-commerce is going to have a unique set of challenges. Or an e-commerce brand that has a director of e-commerce but doesn't have a CTO, they're going to have a unique set of challenges. Or a software company that has a CTO but doesn't have a product manager. Or a VP of sales with a big team versus a VP of sales with a small team. And so it's not just about the right person, but it's about the context that title, is operating inside of that organization. And so segments inside of segments, I think, is one approach. And the other is, I wouldn't send the same email to 1,000 directors of marketing at an e-commerce company. I would cut that by footwear brands, sporting good brands, luxury goods and jewelry brands. And, I would, either manually or in some automated fashion, like merge in my footwear proof points in the footwear segment, merge in my, jewelry points in the jewelry, email. Like vary your reference customers, vary your social proof, all of those things, tie back to story, but it is about just being thoughtful and sophisticated in your targeting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like in our case, we're trying to get in touch with cybersecurity marketers, right? So underneath that umbrella of cybersecurity marketers, there's folks who are in identity and access management. There's folks who do endpoint security. There's folks who do the threat detection. So the competitors that we're working with of theirs that we may reference, or the case studies that we use, the more dialed in those can be, the better. And so it's probably obviously, I mean, this is a ton of work though in a lot of cases, right? To get these segments upon segments nailed down. How do you approach that? Like, do you start with like top 3 and then sort of work down, or start with 1? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, one of the hacks that, I like the word hack. One of the tricks or shortcuts that we often advocate with our clients is download your customer list. It might be 20, it might be 200, it might be 2,000. Download them, get the job titles of the people that bought, get the job titles of the decision makers, group them, cut them, understand them, and that is probably your first your first step at, one, uncovering non-obvious job titles, and 2, probably prioritizing where your hunting might be. And if you're a marketer and you're partnering with your sales team on this, you could probably look at that and like highlight some deals and be like, oh yeah, that one closed fast, or oh, that one was actually a really good one because blah, or like, oh god, well, we fought tooth and nail on that one because we came in through the sales org instead of through the marketing org or through the product team or whatever. And so there you have like these little hints and tea leaves inside of your CRM. You just need to do a little bit of work to extract them and kind of untangle them and kind of slosh the tea around a little bit before you can kind of start to make some decisions. So that's a big piece of it. And there's a lot of software out there that does it for you. I hate to be the podcast guy that sells his own business, but like that's what we do. Like our product does that. I know there are other tools that make it easy to do lookalike audiences and sort of identify these segments. So, I would do it the manual way first. Like I'm kind of old school in that regard. It's like, do it yourself, do it the hard way. And then once you think you have some direction, look at, try to find some tools to
I like that
faster.
I like that as a place to start. It's like, where are we winning? Let's go win some more.
Yeah. I mean, it literally can be that simple.
Yeah. No, that's a great place to start rather than just where you think you might want to start.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So that's the second piece. Then we talked about the third piece, which is the inbox placement, like actually getting there, which is not as simple as it seems. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the third leg of the stool, and it's highly dependent on the first two, right? If you send the right story and you send it to the right person, you're not going to get expletives in the reply back to you. Mm-hmm. You're going to get not interested, not a fit. If you do it well, you're going to get hey, great email, I'm not the right guy, or great email, talk to me in 6 months, which that's gold, because you want to get yes. If you can't get yes, you just want to get a reply. And so the number one driver of open rate is right story, right person. And then there's a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say technical things because they're not all that technical, but CNAME redirects on open URLs or unsubscribe URLs or click URLs. A distributed farm is not the right word, but if you're a RevBoss client, we'll crank up 6 to 10 domains. And we'll activate on half of those, and the other half will kind of sit in reserve, and we kind of crop rotate in an automated.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to, damage your primary brand, your domain name doing this from that.
So. and it's you can automate that, and if you do the first two things well and you stay on top of it, because it's like that. I think it was a Hemingway quote about, going bankrupt. It was it was really slow and then all at once, right? And that's kind of how domain reputation works. It's oh, wow, my open rate, kind of trending down again, and it's trashed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happens. And so if you've got enough pipe, some of which is active and some of which is in reserve, once you see that second week of downtick, pop it out. Just let it cool off, pop in another one. And that's how you keep open rates in the mid 40s to mid 50s. And we have plenty of clients that are a lot higher, and we have other clients that are a bit lower. And that's the other thing too. Big co, it's harder to land in the inbox. Big title, big company means busy person, busy inbox, a lot more security and scrutiny. So you're going to get a lower open rate if you're emailing Fortune 500 CMOs. You're going to get a lot higher open rate if you're emailing 20 person marketing agencies. So that's part of it.
And now and now I start to understand why people just outsource this, so they don't have companies like RevBoss to handle all the stuff, so they're not doing it themselves.
It's a lot, man. So it's a lot.
A little intensive.
We've been doing this for a long time, and every time we think we know a lot about something, we realize that we actually don't. We don't know that much. We know enough to be more than dangerous, but there's just sort of things that we kind of we pull on a thread and oh, wow, we should engineer that, because that would be really cool. And it would do this thing that solves this problem that we didn't really realize that we had for a while.
Yeah, for sure. So right story, right people, right in getting into the inbox. Yeah. Those are the keys to the best practices. That's awesome. So standing out above the noise, if you are relevant, is it fair to say that if you're relevant, you will stand out more than any other particular wording?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, right? Google is not our client, right? And when someone from Google emails you, it's oh, wow, I know that brand. And, for the most part, I would imagine people have a general affinity for that brand. And so, the people that are cranking out prospecting emails or whatever for Google, piece of cake, man. How hard can that be? Hi, I'm Eric. I'm with Google. Okay, yeah, I'm interested. I already pay you tens of thousands of dollars a month across a variety of products. Versus, Eric's SaaS startup. No one has heard of me or what we do, and nobody cares. So, being relevant is a part of it, but brand is a part of it too. most of our clients are not brands that people have heard of. We have certainly a number of clients whose brands you have heard of, the people watching this and listening to this have heard of. Some that are like very well known in their niche, and so we do lean on that in those cases. But really, just cutting straight to the point. I'm Eric, and here's my story. I'm contacting you because, and internally we refer to those things as connectors. It's like kind of the reason. And it's like, look, the more connectors you can build, the better. 2 at a minimum, 3, 4, 5 if you can get there. And that's how the open rate is like a function of all these other things that we've described and a decent subject line. And that's a tiny piece of it. We don't care that much. I wouldn't care that much about open rate. Open rate is going to be what it will be if you do kind of these basic things. I would invest all of my time on the message itself and putting as much like relevance as you can in the subject line and in the first line of the email. That's how we try to stand out.
That's awesome. And I think you spoke to this, but it does make sense. You got companies at different stages, right? So there's startups with funding, there's startups without funding. There's, established large organizations. They've got different compliance needs and things like that have to be weaved in. Let's talk a little bit about, let's say that you're a startup, you've got some funding or you've got some traction or momentum behind you. How can sales outreach or cold outreach email help your go-to-market as a smaller startup?
Yeah, so that is an area where I personally have a lot of experience, like building companies and consulting. Like consulting with early stage tech companies is the thing that kind of got me into the thing that eventually became RevBoss. So, and it's also just like really fun. It's really fun helping a business go from 0 to 10 clients, right? Like, or 0 to 1. And it's a weird personal aside, but I can literally remember and can tell you their names, the first people that bought from me at every like early stage business I've either started or worked with. And it's like a weird personal thing, and it's really fun. And my experience and my recommendation for an early stage tech company is owning a couple facts that are might be kind of tough to hear. One is that nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your product. And ultimately you have to sell you. And so if you are early stage, like looking for your first or your 5th or your 10th customer, you probably don't have enough software to actually be that interesting. And you probably don't have any clients that anybody cares about. And so you just have to lean heavily on, hey, Jordy, I'm Eric. Before starting this, I did these interesting things that give me a lot of credibility. I'd love to get your take on this. Like, I took a look at your company, I would love to get your take because, and you don't sell a product, you sell a problem, you sell vanity, right? It's like, I would love to get your feedback. And that just opens doors. And, for early stage companies, it's not like how many leads did I get, it's how many conversations did I have, because you probably don't have anything to sell yet. You need to figure out what you have and who your buyer is. And so, do 50 of those, which is hard to hear because like, I don't have any money or I'm burning cash or like I'm under the gun. It's like, yeah, I know. But like the worst thing is like selling the wrong product to the wrong person. Like that's just like totally counterproductive. And so get sharp on who you are and who you want to sell to. That's sort of like step 1. Step 2 is like, okay, you got something to sell. You got a little bit of a story. You, the founder, has to sell it. You can't hire some smart kids from the local university. You can't go hire some hotshot VP of sales and expect them to solve the problem. You have to do it as the founder of the business because you know it better than anyone. You care about it more than anyone. You can talk about it. Even if you're selling into a big company, those people want to talk to the CEO of the business. And yeah, so many times we'll talk to a founder's like, oh yeah, this is great. Well, I'm recruiting a VP of sales. Like, don't, it's not gonna work. It's just not.
It's too soon.
You have to do it. right? And so then it's like, okay, I'm the founder selling the founder. Now I'm the founder selling the product. Do that enough where you have learned it to teach other people, then go hire 2 people and teach 2 people. And it has to be 2 people. And the reason it has to be 2 people is that if you hire one and it works, you don't know why it worked. And if you hire one and it doesn't work, you don't know why it didn't work. But if you hire 2, it might work for both, or it might work for one or the other. And then you kind of take, is Jordy really good? You take that variable out, right? The person becomes less of an influence in the equation. And so, for every early stage company that we've ever worked with, that is like the prescription that we give, and try to do our best to get our clients to kind of follow through on that. And that's not just RevBoss. That's just life advice for any early stage founders. Like, that's just how you do it.
Yep. I like it. And then, so when a company then is leveled up to the point where they've got a BDR team or an SDR team, they've got a sales team, how can cold outreach partners and so forth help augment the efforts of those BDRs? Because the BDRs are doing outreach, but oftentimes they're just handling inbound.
Yeah.
So how can that work?
Yeah. Augment is the word, right? Often use the analogy of like an extra engine on the plane, right? Like just bolt 2 engines on the both wings of the 747, and that's kind of what we can provide. And we have BDRs on our team, and that's a hard job to do. It's a hard job to recruit for. It's a hard job to retain. It's, for a lot of reasons, right? Like, BDRs that are amazing don't want to do that job forever. Some BDRs that you interview seem like they're going to be amazing, and they're not amazing because they're tend to skew young and they don't know what they want to do. And so it's a hard job. And so a lot of times the value that a partner can provide is you don't have to recruit them. You don't have to train them. You don't have to manage them. You don't have to it's just like, boom, problem solved. Right. And so I think that's key, is that you can just kind of spin it up and it can go. In my experience, the complicating factor with bigger organizations is integration. Is, I've got a team of 10 people already doing this, or 100 people already doing this. How in the world am I going to weave in a third party email prospecting provider or a cold caller or really anything? And that it kind of just becomes like an integration challenge. And so if you have good process and you have a good idea of segments and swim lanes, then you can make it happen. If you don't have good process, you don't have good tech, then it's gonna be messy.
But it is overcomable. You can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So one example that comes to mind, well, 2 examples come to mind, larger software companies that I know that we work with, that I'm either know the founder or kind of involved with. One of them, the only thing that we do for them, and this is something that kind of gets back to the right person part of the framework, is this company, and we do this internally too. This company uses Clearbit or Leadfeeder, whatever it's called now. I think it's called Dealfront. Any number of tools that can unmask an IP and tell you that oh, this IP hit your website. It's probably Acme Co. Right. And, a lot of marketing automation tools will do this. We'll batch up those domains, flip them to us. The reason it works well for this one company, and generally for us too, is that it's a pretty specific job title that you're looking for. And, you just happen to email probably the right person that was on your domain this week, yesterday, last week, and it works. And so one way that a partner can plug in, that we've plugged in, is it's not like a segment or a geographic swim lane. It's like a process or emotion swim lane, where it's this thing that we want to do, we're not going to staff it with a person. We're going to staff it with a provider. Event outreach is another one where it's like, yeah, you can staff a person to like grind through all of that. But that's also like a very like nicely packaged, well-defined channel that you could just like bring in a team that can just like make hay. And so that's another way to do it. And the other client that I'm thinking of, it's like every marketing team. It's like we're stretched too thin. I've got like 10 things that I want to do. I've got enough people and budget to do 6 things, and they're all long plays. It's brand, it's whale hunting, it's things that are gonna, or it's SEO, right? It's things that like will probably work, but aren't going to work in the next 30 days. And I like that RevBoss is emailing exactly the right person, exactly the right message, and a lot of those people reply and turn into leads. And it's kind of like the portfolio approach with your investments. It's like I want a mix of long-term investments and like transactional short-term bets. That's like another way that I've seen us plug in and do well. And not just us, like anyone that kind of does the things that we can do can kind of solve the problem in that way.
I think so there's a couple takeaways there. One of them is that when you're looking at augmentation of your BDR team, focus it around a segment or a process or an approach. So, you get your intent data signals from, whatever platform it is that indicates these clients are in market, or they, like you said, uncovered website visits or whatever it might be, and then have a flow built around that. And that can, as opposed to just sort of saying, you take this persona, we'll take this persona.
Yeah. That just gets like so many collisions happen that are unexpected. In that regard. And so when you've got like a clearly defined channel or process, it's a lot cleaner.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So PR campaigns. So we've got clients who, for instance, on our end, right, they're running a launch plan, this is a big one, right? Launches, new versions, new features, new products, whatever it might be. Have you seen cold outreach or sales outreach messaging tie into PR efforts?
Well, it certainly changes the story, right? Launched a new feature that, adds a whole new dynamic to the problem that we address, or that reframes how we solve the problem. If that's the new story, you need to tell it. I think, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head. And I think the reason why is that if you brought that to our team, they would say, that's amazing. Nobody cares. Right? Like journalists care. Journalists want a story. Of course, you want to be on podcasts. Like you want this story out there. But Jordy's out here hacking through the jungle trying to solve his next problem. And your email that says, introducing the new, Marketer 5000. So don't care. That's about you. Talk to me about my problem. So to the extent that you can take the PR, like the sort of the underlying truth of the PR, and like frame that into the story, yeah, totally. But would caution against like cold email prospecting as like a campaign, like PR campaign, tentacle, just because it's gonna land with a thud, unless it's
good to know.
Unless it's like a story framed in your terms as the recipient.
So I guess one other way too, maybe that it could help is, we were thinking about this earlier, was if you've got a new version or launch or product that addresses a new pain.
Yes.
You can go now after folks who have that pain, that may be a different persona, that may be a different technographic layer somewhere in the stack that you now address, that opens up your prospect potential.
Yeah, precisely.
So maybe that's a better way to think of it.
You built a cool new thing. Awesome. It changes your story. The story probably changes. If the story's different, the audience might be different. Like that's exactly how I would frame it, as opposed to like, Oh, all right. Well, we got our PR campaign. Now let's repackage this, and instead of sending it through the press release and journalist channel, now let's send it through our prospect channel. It's like it won't work. But exactly what you described, it'll work.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, we got something we can take away there and maybe think about how launches open up new prospects and new opportunities in the stack. So excellent. What about field marketing? We've got a lot of folks who are listening who are in the field marketing team. They're responsible for events in certain geographies, for instance, or initiatives that they're running just inside certain geographies. Seems like it might be a fit for that.
Yeah. I mentioned the concept of connectors earlier. I'm contacting you because geography and events are like just choice connectors, right? And it's like, hey, I'm going to this event. I would love to meet you. Hey, I hate we didn't get to connect at this event. Simple stuff. It works if you do it well. We have a client who used events in like a really, really clever kind of inverted approach. His whole thing was like, I want the exhibitors, not the attendees. And I want the exhibitors because if you are exhibiting at a trade show that broadly fits my dynamic, then you've proven to me that you care about marketing, because trade shows are expensive and hard to do. And two, based on the size of your booth or like the prominence of your location, I can make some inferences about your budget and how much you care about marketing. And so even this is slightly tangential to what you described, but like using events as like a qualifier. I mean, I've been like selling and working in B2B for a long time. And when this guy told me that, I was like, God dang it. That's so freaking smart.
Yeah.
And so obvious. And so like that's another way that we've seen events be useful as like just like a really clever qualifier. But geography is another good one. And this is a great connector, not as like you're in Durham, go Blue Devils. One, if someone sent me something that said you're in Durham, go Blue Devils, like I'm a Carolina guy. I just happen to live close to Duke University. That's like an easy like spam button. But we look at it again through the lens of like why I'm contacting you. So like, hey Eric, you're in Durham. I went to Duke. Hey Eric, you're in Durham. Went to a Durham Bulls game with my kids for, whatever, like something that like highlights your connectivity to me and my geography. And so when you think about field marketing, like if I've got a set of territories, I might live in that place. I might actually have like some deep, roots or connectivity there, so that it's not just like, oh, you're in Kansas City, go Royals. It's like, well, no, like I raised my kids here. I got my kids play soccer at the whatever, city park. And like that kind of stuff stands out. It's a story. Right.
And it seems to me too, like when it comes to those geographies, if field marketers are running events in a particular city, so we've got a road show, we're coming to these geographies or these cities in the next whatever, and you want to, you don't want to come to the hotel conference room and nobody's there. It seems like the outreach would be a great way to get bums and seats and line people up in advance for stuff like that.
Yeah. We did a lot of that pre-COVID. Much like none of that, like zero of that during COVID. Much less of that than we used to. But I like certainly know it exists, and it fits the framework, right? Like right person, right story. And what geography gives you, what like a field marketing event or like a local field sales team gives you, it's like, okay, great. Very tight bullseye and a very tight, geographic qualifier. It reframes your story, and it creates a constraint that can be really powerful. Right?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think too, like there's a lot of marketers out there whose companies are mature. They're running their own user conferences now. They've got their own shows. And a big part of what marketers are tasked with is, whether it's online only, virtual, or hybrid, or in person, getting attendees for their, branded in-house events. Have you seen outreach help with that?
Yeah.
In
And I mean,
advance?
those things are like giant, like, you run the 2022 event and you take a break for a week, and then like you're starting to ramp up the 2023 event. Those are like big productions, big efforts. And so those things are like broad, multi-channel. You gotta sell tickets, you gotta get sponsors, you gotta get the whole deal. And the thing that prospecting, the way we do it and the way we're talking about it, can give you is, one, it gets you fishing outside of your kind of like house pond, right? Like clearly, like most of your attendees are going to be your current customers, which is that's
Right.
what you want. Well, you also want new customers, and so outbound is a great way to go out and do that in a way that isn't like, here's our slick, you know, marketing email that's got the picture of the keynote speaker and, a YouTube video of the rock band that, MC Hammer or whoever's playing the event. It's much more like, hey, Jordy, I'm Eric. We haven't met, but, wanted to personally invite you to this thing because da 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 da. And you can do that at the like one-to-one. Like, if you're a big enough target, I'm telling my team, like, I'm going to go get that guy. Right. But, then there's sort of the medium and smaller fish where you can automate it, right? Like you can, it's all about right person, right story. And so it's like the story's like, hey, come to our party. It's going to be great. Like your colleagues and your competitors and your friends are going to be there. You should totally come.
So do you see, for those type of approaches, there's travel involved and all this kind of thing for people to come to these events, the personal outreach model work better in some cases than sending out an HTML email flyer?
I mean, I am extraordinarily biased,
No.
in regards to that question. I mean, we do a marketing email, but every marketing email that we send has like a tome at the top of it written by me or someone from our team that is like deeply personal and, generally, usually tangentially related to, our business. But like, I've written email intros that are about my daughter's swim team or my son's, the fact that I didn't hit puberty till really late. And like, it's like, it's weird, man. And that's what people want. That's what people want to hear. And so like,
Yep.
will I respond to like, hey, come to our, we use Intercom. I don't know if Intercom has a customer event or whatever. And we're not a big customer for Intercom. Will I respond to like a boring, like marketing ad, come to our thing, hear our person? No. Would I respond to like our rep emailing me? Yeah. Probably, I'm much more likely to respond to that than something that feels impersonal and clinical. And I think that's that if there's one thing I would like advocate as the takeaway from all this blathering for me is that don't be afraid to be more personal in your marketing. Like that's what like one-to-one outbound can give you. And like what we do, like I would qualify what we do as one-to-one, even though it's like software powered and software personalized and automated in a lot of respects. Like the more personal you get, like the more you get, you're going to get buy-in, you're going to stand out, and you can like manufacture, interest and care.
Connection.
And I think that kind of is probably like a good way to boil it down, particularly as it relates to this event thing. Like, you got to sell a lot of got to get a lot of butts and a lot of seats. And, clearly you got to fish with a big, big net to do that. But I would certainly like line fish and try to catch the big ones with a very personalized, very targeted approach.
Yeah, I like it. Awesome. So AI, can I use AI to write my scripts for me when it comes to my
I've never read anything that Allen Iverson wrote. So I think
he's amazing.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, we use it at RevBoss. I know there are, it's like, 1,000 AI flowers blooming in terms of like the sort of hot startup category. which I find like personally interesting and funny because it's like literally all of these are just open like interfaces on top of OpenAI. So it's like, sure, but this is not going to end well for the 300, automated marketing content tools. The only one that's going to survive is OpenAI.
Right.
The rest of them, it's like total race to the bottom. So personal market commentary aside, it's wonderful and solves a lot of problems in a lot of ways for marketers. It solves a lot of problems for email prospectors. It does not solve the messaging problem in my experience. Generative AI in its current form is pretty bad at the sort of marketing, like intro, like, hey, Jordy, I'm Eric. I'd love to tell you about what we do. Like, right story. I'm a little bit old school, and like the right story's got to be human storytelling, human based. I might be on your podcast again in 6 months, totally out of business because some AI super genius like wiped us off the face of the earth with like an improved version, which, certainly like the way ChatGPT 4 is compared to 3 or 3.5, it is going to keep getting better. One of our investors is a guy named Robbie Allen, who's like an OG machine learning AI guy, and like he's all about it. And but for where it is now, if your BDRs are just like cracking open ChatGPT and copy pasting that into Apollo or SalesLoft or Gmail or whatever, probably not going to work.
But so that when we're thinking of it generating something from scratch, but let's say that I already have, some scripts that are working.
You set that up nicely. That's where it's really good.
That's a shocker.
Generative AI, I would, it's good in some cases, not outbound email cold prospecting. Iterative AI, amazing.
Right.
Like you've got a set of flows that are working well. Throw it in ChatGPT and say, make this shorter, make this more clever, make this more direct. Reframe this with, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? It might not give you something that's like perfect, that's good to go, but it will like give you something. And it's going to be a lot faster than like, hey, Jordy, copywriter guy, can you make this, whatever? Like that's hard as a copywriter, right? People can do it and our team can do it, but ChatGPT can do it like that. And the cost of getting like, if you don't like what you get, you just say, hey, well, make it more like this or less like that, and you get another version instantly. So it's really good at iteration. We are integrating it deeply into our workflow as a transactional tool. And, when you say in your reply, hey, this sounds great, I'm heading out on vacation in a couple weeks, follow up then. Or, we're going to look at this in Q4. Or you should follow up with Susie. She's leading this on our team. Or, hey, how about we meet on Thursday? AI does a really good job of like packaging up those replies. Like, you gotta be thoughtful with your prompt, right? But we've tested this stuff extensively, and that's like the investment that we've made and continue to make with our platform is that AI as just like managing that ping pong of like scheduling a meeting, or hey, can you follow up next week, or can you follow up with whoever, if I give that to you, my client's like, oh, here, I created work for you. And same thing like with your BDR team. It's like, well, yeah, a human could definitely do that, but I trust humans, great, but I trust computers a whole lot more to do what they say they're going to do. And so, yeah, there's just like an efficiency lift and precision lift that I think that it can give you that is like totally worth digging into.
And that's interesting too, because that's something that you have to think about when you're engaging in these kinds of campaigns, which is what are we going to do when it works? When people respond, how are we going to manage that incoming, first of all, the handoff, right, from an outsourced partner or BDR, whatever it is, to the folks who are actually going to follow up. What's the best way to handle that? So do you rely, sort of for a company like us, will we typically rely on the partner to handle the back and forth of that, or is it best to just hand it off as quick as possible and keep moving forward with the other parts of the engine?
So it's like a spectrum of leads, right? Mm-hmm. There are the leads that are like booked on your calendar. Right. And like, we love those. You love those. Everybody loves those. It's like, you merge in your availability in the first email, or you automatically merge in your availability in a bump or in a reply, and it just magically appears. It's like, oh, this is so easy. The next notch in is like, here's my calendar. And in which case, like, you book it or we book it, like piece of cake. How about Thursday? Right. Well, in that case, like, you look at your calendar or we look at your calendar, and it gets booked. And so like, it takes a little bit more human input the further down the path you go. But where it starts to diverge a little bit is like, as a BDR or as a like partner like us, it's like, I would feel better if Jordy replied to this, not me. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like we got like a tiny crack open in the door with a great prospect. You don't want AI to respond to that. Maybe, some of it, if it's like, hey, follow up with me next week, AI, boom, piece of cake. Mm-hmm. If it's, can you tell me more about how the thing and that tie with the other? It's like, well, AI, no. BDR, I mean, maybe if they're good, if you trust them, they might totally scuttle it. Outsource partner like RevBoss, like we would be like, hey, client, here you go. This is going to take a little bit of legwork, but like, this is good. We don't want to screw it up. And so that's where it starts to get, less of like a clear cut, assembly line, and a little bit more of like, let's just be thoughtful and like optimize for the best possible outcome. And in some cases, like the best possible outcome means the client or the senior salesperson needs to jump in and take the wheel to make sure that that tiny little ember of a lead gets like the care and attention that it needs to like grow into an opportunity.
Yeah. And I think the takeaway from that is that, like you mentioned, a thoughtful approach, right? You got to think ahead about what are we going to do if this works? How are we going to handle these different reply scenarios? And maybe you're only going to come up with those as you go and have to figure it out, but you need to monitor it, right? Yeah. No, that's an excellent point.
Yeah. And I mean, the way we're engineering this problem is, it's all machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence with a human overseer.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, we got a reply from Jordy. I think it's this. Here's what I'm going to say. Will you please confirm?
I like
it. Right. And then a human is like, oh, yeah. Yep. No. Right. And so I think the thing of like, the promise of AI and all of this technology, it's like super cool. And it's like really fun to build these products and like amazing tools to solve problems. And it's going to fundamentally change the way marketers do their work. But there's still going to be work. And like a person still has to like make thoughtful decisions because like, an AI is going to do what it thinks is best, and it's a robot, not a person.
Mm-hmm. No, I like it. So, I mean, you're thinking ahead about, if we were just sort of summarize our discussion today, we're thinking about the framework for what works, which is the right story for the right people in the right inbox. Did I get that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, if you get the first two, the third one usually comes for free. If you take care of some like basic technical details and basic technical kind of workflow and just like, care and attention, right story, right person, and you'll get the deliverability, the open rate will come along for free.
Right. And then another takeaway that I found in talking with you, Eric, is that we need to look for connectors, things that will give us an opportunity to build a connection with, whether it's location or something to do with the pro, like what are the top connectors from your perspective?
It can be geography is an easy one. Technologies they're using is an easy one. Where they went to school is an easy one that I would not use if I were you, because it's like so like hackneyed and overused. The better ones, the more subtle ones are, we work with your competitors. I know about your problem because I started this business because I had that problem. Or I know about your problem because I had the same job as you in another context and whatever.
So a personal connection.
Yeah. Or, I was researching actual tech, saw that you don't have a product manager. I bet that means this for you. I was researching actual tech, saw that you're a one-person marketing team. I bet that means this for you. That is like, that's the juice. Like that's where you find it. And it's like, and it's that right person leap that's like, oh, these people meet my job title and company size and, based in the US criteria. But it's like, yeah, but what's the context of that person? And so that's how you find connectors.
Awesome. Wow. Well, this has been amazing. And I've learned so much today. This is fantastic. Eric, thank you. And we want people to be able to connect with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you and RevBoss if they want to work with you on a cold email outreach program?
RevBoss.com. You can find us there. And there is no Reverend Boss. Just RevBoss.
It's revenue.
Yeah. I was sitting at this desk many years ago and was like, I want a 6 or 7 letter domain. And I just made up words until I found a domain that was available.
Oh, it rocks. It's awesome. And then where can people connect with you personally?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'm on Instagram too, but Instagram is just pictures of my kids and very bizarre humor. So if that's not your thing, find me on LinkedIn. Plenty of Rev Buds there that you can meet too. And clearly I love talking about these things and could keep going if you'd keep asking me questions. And so, I'm happy to connect with folks, regardless of RevBoss or whatever. I just enjoy talking about this kind of stuff, all these problems and clever ways to go about it, simply because talking about it helps me learn too.
Awesome. Well, it's been an awesome discussion. Thanks very much. And I think that's the pod. We'll talk to everybody in the next episode.
Thanks, Jordy. Bye, y'all.